Welcome back to this week's episode of Success Through Connections, and I'm your host, Zelda. Today, my guest is Al Bagocius, and he's got a really cool topic that's so relevant. I see it with so many of my friends and family members. So I'm going to first tell you a little bit about how I met Al. I don't know if you remember this, Al, but it was probably last year. We were both attending a networking event at a restaurant. And I came up and introduced myself to you, and you told me a little bit about who you were and what you did, because I knew you. You're like famous out in Jacksonville. We all know who you are. So that's how I met you originally. And then I had a mutual friend actually on the podcast several months ago. I had Catherine West. She spoke about business strategies. And after the podcast, she said, you really have to meet Al. He would be fantastic for the podcast. So I reached out to you, and that is how I am connected to you, Al.
That's very nice, Zelda, and I really appreciate that.
So let me tell you all a little bit about Al and his wife. I believe they are partners in their business, and they are celebrating their 6-year anniversary in the business of Oasis Senior Advisors. And they offer a very free service to seniors and their families, and it's such an important service that they offer. So they help the families and those seniors, help them find the right facility, the right location for their home, for their loved one, when they need that extra help that maybe the adult child can no longer really give them. So they moved here from Connecticut about 18 years ago because Carol, his wife's parents, needed that extra attention, that their only way they were going to be able to do that is if they packed up and they moved. So they moved to Jacksonville, and they started doing the senior care here in Jacksonville. And so it became a passion of theirs, and they love helping seniors and their families go that extra mile for those families to help them get into the right facility to make life a little bit easier for everyone. I think I got that about right. Would you say, Al?
It was wonderful. Thank you.
So, Al, what you offer, I see it happening as a baby boomer. We see our aging parents struggling, and we see the adult children struggling because oftentimes we're trying our best to be the caregiver. And so they move into our homes, or maybe they're living alone. How do you advise people to give these adult children who are juggling their careers, because we're still working, and juggling the caregiving from maybe a distance from another facility? What kind of advice do you give them?
One of the key points is learning how to communicate to your elderly parents. All too often, adult children don't. And when they do, it's a kind of talking down type of situation. And then you have like a clashing of both the parents and the adult children. So I offer even coaching the adult children of how to communicate to your mom and dad. Too often that's lost. That's lost in the translation. So I think that's really important. I think overall, what I do, or what Carol and I do, is offer peace of mind for the adult children, take the lead, navigate what the next best step is for their mom and dad. Sometimes it's very frightening. And so I spent a lot of time connecting with the families to make them feel comfortable, earn their trust, and we march on from there. And
would you say, Al, that maybe it's 50-50 or not that, but that it's usually maybe the adult child that's concerned with starting this conversation, or maybe it's the parent that needs it that's having a tough time trying to convey that message?
There's an old adage out there that goes back to the older generation than yours and mine, and that is, not to decide is to decide. So what that means is they're going to put their heads in the sand, and they're not going to make a decision. They want to stay home no matter what, and they can't see beyond what may or may not happen. And many times I give talks to adult children, and we'll be in a room and I look outside of the window and I see all these BMWs and Mercedes and all of that. And I ask the adult children, what's your most important asset? Well, your mom and dad. And they'll say their pension, their money, their house, this or that. And I shake them down and I say, your parents and your most important asset is your parents' balance. You can have all the money in the world. You can have all the golden plans of your retirement. You're not taking care of your balance and you have one terrible fall and you wind up in a hospital and then you wind up going to a rehab center, not of your choice, but the one that has an open bed.
Yes.
That may not be a pretty place. You may be so disappointed in the ambiance, the food. You start copying an attitude. You're not drinking water like you should. You start forming a urinary tract infection. Sepsis sets in. And
you go downhill.
Final comes a lot sooner. So balance is so critical. I'm almost on a ministry in saying that. Walk, do something. Mom and dad shouldn't be sitting in front of a TV. There's so many activities to get involved with. Help them do that. Okay.
That is such fantastic advice, and I'm taking heed myself of that because balance is so important. I know that. So I was lucky. Our dad, when he got into a car accident in his 90s, he handed over his keys. He's like, here, I'm done. So it was but I would imagine for most parents, it's not that, or adult children, it's not that easy to say, hand over your keys.
Well, that's the story behind Carol's mom and dad. They were living in Delray Beach. And every vacation we had from Connecticut, we would fly down there. And there was a Seinfeld scene where he's laying down in the bed in his parents' house in one of those pull-out beds, and there's a bar underneath, and it's very tortuous. And that's the way we started out seeing them. And then once her dad, he had macular degeneration. Too many accidents, the state police took his license away.
Yeah.
His mom had neuropathy, and then he could not take her to the hairdresser on Saturday morning. So they were both going to be relegated to a life of misery without the car, things of that sort. So that's why we did move down to Jacksonville, where Carol's brother lived, and got him up here.
Gotcha. That was the right thing to do.
It is. And I know firsthand, Carol and I know the firsthand of pain of where do you start? Where do you look? What do you believe you're hearing at these senior communities when a sales and marketing director tells you how great it is? Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. It's like, can you walk us through a typical situation of what should you, when you're getting a little ahead of myself, but when you go to these facilities and they're showing you all the beautiful things and all that, what are the things that you should be looking for and listening for?
Okay.
And maybe even the questions you should be asking.
Absolutely. So a lot is said without saying a word. Okay. First and foremost. So if a family's going to go on a tour without somebody like me, see how that sales and marketing director interacts with people that are the residents. If they just whiz by and they don't say, hey, Margaret, how you doing? Bill, how's your son doing? Then there's not a connection there on the part of the sales and marketing people, and that may permeate through the entire staff. So when I go on a tour, I schedule the tours during lunchtime. Okay. So number one, an army marches on its stomach, and so do seniors. So if seniors aren't happy with the food that's there, they're going to be extremely unhappy. So they get to test the food. We're sitting around with other seniors. I ask point blank, what do you like about this place? What are some things they can improve on? Straight out. So that they realize, well, I want everybody to realize that no place is perfect. Right. But when you can talk to a senior who's a resident, without the window dressing of sales and marketing, you get the true feel of what that place is like. And that's really important. One of the things, and this goes back to people who are thinking about this, one of the things that my seniors that I'm working with always hear from the seniors during lunch that live there, those seniors are saying, I wish I would have done this a lot sooner.
Wow.
Because they probably did it when, all right, they fell, they can't do very much, they're relegated to assisted living. But there's a lot of opportunity to get in there into a senior community when you have all your faculties and your mobility and really enjoy life. That's why there are senior communities. And the mentality that our parents had, you walked in and you could smell the smells in a nursing home, that's not what senior communities are like anymore. It's quite different. We, adult children in the baby boomer generation, are really challenging senior communities to rise to the occasion and be very amenable to the individual needs of seniors. So a lot of activities, a lot of cognitive challenges to keep people engaged.
Yeah, I can tell you that, like, I make it no secret. I live in a 55 community. My sister and her husband, they came here because they said, hey, they have a lot of activities for us. And so it's not senior living, but it's, a 55 community. Again, it's all about keeping your brain active and having activities to do. Yeah, there's all of that. So what are some subtle signs that a senior parent is no longer safe and thriving in their own home?
You know how you take your parents out to have a meal, you go to the Outback and they have a little clamshell doggy bag container. Mm-hmm. You see them on a Saturday night, you put the container in their refrigerator, you see them on Thursday, the following week, that container is still there.
Oh.
Okay, so now we're talking about food poisoning. Yeah. Okay, so now your parents are forgetful about food that's in the refrigerator, open it up for some nasty bacteria. That's one thing that a lot of people overlook because you're trying to be generous to your parents. You give them some extra food. You don't know whether they eat it. And when they do eat it, it may be in a later state of that food being good. So,
hey, they could have trouble just opening the containers.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like, hello.
That is so true. So, yep, that is obviously.
What does your company do? What do y'all do to help the seniors, especially, like, I would think a lot of out-of-towners, but what exactly do you do?
What we do is we do a discovery of what the seniors' needs are and finding out what their likes and dislikes. What are their care needs? What kind of care needs do they have? What special arrangements do they need? And then on top of that, all said, we have to come to terms with what is this all going to cost?
Yeah.
Okay. And people have a lot of misnomers about all the things entailed with living in a senior community. So I help ferret out some of those things that are readily available for seniors, like veterans benefits, aid in attendance, which is a really nice benefit for veterans who served during war, like Korea, Vietnam, World War II, and part of the Iraq wars. And that comes out to the tune of $2,400 a month. And that certainly helps our male seniors, mostly who were veterans in war.
Right.
Okay. Spousal.
I was going to say, does like Social Security or any of that type of thing kick in? Or no. Medicare, Medicaid, any of that?
Well, Medicare doesn't. Medicaid does. And there's a couple disclaimers about Medicaid. Some people think it's a carte blanche, it'll pay for everything. And that's not necessarily true. What happens, and there's really different tiers of senior living. There's independent.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Memory care and then long-term care. On the assisted memory care and long-term care, you can meander onto Medicaid somebody who doesn't have a lot of money may only have the option of long-term care and skilled nursing because that's the least expensive way of going. So every senior is a snowflake. Everybody's different. I take note of that every time I meet a family and note that I'm not looking at a senior. I'm looking at somebody's mom and dad.
Yeah.
Very individual. I think what really differentiates me from the rest of my peers in this business is I chose the route of not only the discovery, placing them into a right community, but constantly visiting them on a continual basis through their whole life journey. And that's inclusive of celebrations of life. Last week, I went up to the National Cemetery and we buried a spouse of a veteran, and I was with the family, and I continue to be with the family after the passing because I formed that relationship.
Yeah, you have that relationship. That's what life is about, is making these connections. So we touched a little bit about the finances. What kind of out-of-pocket expenses should someone expect to be paying when they're in one of these facilities?
All right. So let's say somebody needs a little bit of care. Prices can range anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 on the startup.
Wow.
Month. Every place has a community fee that can range from $2,500 to $5,000, a one-time fee once you're in there. And that's non-refundable, by the way. So it can be pretty expensive. And I take a lot of time to explain all the options of each community. Like I said, we go to lunch to get a feel for it. We got to kick the tires.
Yes. Yes.
And what the communities do, there's two things that have to happen. There is a state form that has to be filled out by the primary care physician. It's called a Form 1823. And somebody scratches their head and says, "What's that?" And I always got an answer for that. It's a Carfax for a human being. Okay. It says what care needs the senior needs, what their medications are. So it gives the community an idea of what they're going to get into if they take on this senior with maybe some care needs. Okay. So that's the one thing. The second thing is the community will do an assessment on the senior to find out what their care needs are. Are they cognizant? Is there any sign of dementia? All those things.
So can you tell us a little bit about the differences between assisted living, memory care, nursing home, the different types of things?
Oh, absolutely. Let's go one step further and start off from the very top. There is independent living, which means you really don't need any care. People will say hi to you, look after you. You fall down in an independent living community, they will not make arrangements to pick you up. They will call 911. Okay. And that's strictly the definition of independent living.
So what's the point of being there?
The point being is when you're in independent living, you're independent. You're kind of like in your 55 plus. You don't have anybody in your 55 plus community that's going to pick you up. But what happens, most of these communities, and there's a few around town that have independent, assisted, and memory care. So you would meander from independent living to assisted living, then you would get the care that you need. Okay. So that's what happens there. And as you age in place, other things might happen. You might have a need for memory care. And I just wrote a blog this morning about Florida because it was initiated. We had a silver alert in my community. Here I am riding a bike and I'm looking at a guy using his walker going down the street toward the exit of our community. And I stop him and I say, "Where you going?" He said, "I'm going home." And I'm full of questions. "Where's home?" Southside Boulevard. And we're on Hodges. So he is going off the reservation. So called JSO, called my wife, took a picture of the guy, put it up on our POA Facebook. Somebody saw it. Hey, that's my uncle. He was here and he got up early and walked away. So memory care is the kind of place where you have a lot of services, and the fear of elopement that adult children might have are gone because they're in a lockdown environment. Okay. So those are some of the differences that you see in those types of communities. And I try to explain this to my adult children. You and I are the best we're going to be today. I come back and see Zelda in 2 years, or you come back and see Al in 2 years, he's not going to be as good as he used to be. Okay. So we're all moving targets.
I know.
So here's the key. Here's one of the keys. You got to pick a senior community that's not a tailored fit to you pick a senior community that your parent can grow into as they age in place. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes. Yeah, you can get a nice one with a grand piano, very independent and whatever. They have one fall and all bets are off.
You know, I had a conversation with one of my children very recently, and I said, because I'm watching them with their mother-in-law, and I said, if I get to that point of needing help, I want to go to an assisted living facility. And they were like, oh no, you'll come stay with us. We're going to take care of you. And I'm like, I don't want y'all to take it. And it was almost like an argument. It was like, I think it's the children, they feel guilty. You know, it's like, no, we're going to take care of you. I'm like, no, I don't want you to do that. So do you see that very often where it's the children who feel guilty about it?
I want to jump in with both feet on that. So number one, be careful what you wish for. Okay. Because what happens, that changes the dynamic of the relationship, where when you're a full-time caregiver, there's no room for that beautiful relationship together. And let me explain. I've had married couples where we had to make a decision that one of the married couples had to go into skilled nursing or assisted.
Yes.
And the other one is still home.
Yes.
The beautiful thing is the one that needs care is getting the care. The one that's home is able to have a loving relationship with the one who's getting care, because their nose isn't to the grindstone 24/7, and they both can share at their own level that same loving relationship.
Yes.
So, I mean, that certainly makes sense. And like I said, be careful what you wish for, because those things tend to be disastrous. And, somebody has their parents at home and they got to go to work and come back. The parents have fallen. Nobody's checking up on them. It's very tragic. So,
not to mention the toll it takes on them. I mean, I've watched my sister be a caregiver to our father, and it was tough. It was very tough. And I was able to help a little bit, but she took the brunt of it, and it was rough. And I've seen many of my friends do this with relatives of theirs. They're the caregiver, and it's more than a job. It's rough. It's rough. It is not something you want your children to be.
No. And it doesn't help either parties either. I mean, I really don't think so. And your loved one needs the socialization.
Yeah.
You really do. And you're doing them a disservice when you cut them off from opportunities to do something. And there are daycares too that you can send your elderly parents to during the day so that they become engaged.
Yeah. So if someone is listening now and they're feeling overwhelmed with and unsure of where to begin, what's the single best advice you could give them to help them?
Call me.
There you go. And how do they call you? How do they reach you, Al?
Okay. Very simply, my phone is always turned on. It's 904-553-9539. And I take calls 7 days a week. I got a call Father's Day from one of the people I've been helping for a year. When I went to their condo on the beautiful beach of Jack's Beach, I knew right then and there they weren't going to move. And I said, I'm going to support you because you connected with me, and I'll be here for you. And darn it, they called me on Father's Day. He's in the hospital. That's why I was a little late getting here, getting dressed, because I was taking her phone call. And I'm going back to Baptist Beaches tomorrow to help them along in this progress. I do a lot of things pro bono to the community, and a lot of people don't know that. I work with JSO. I work with Department of Children and Families, Beam, the nonprofit, Heartfelt Ministries. They all call me for seniors in distress, and many of them don't have any money, but so well connected in the community. I know where all the nooks and crannies are, and there is a underground market of older women who have homes, who converted them into a kind of care home. They take a portion of the person's Social Security,
Right.
they take them to Publix, they do certain things, and it's like a little cottage industry.
Yeah.
And on that note, this is kind of a disconnect for a lot of people. 50% of the assisted living beds in Jacksonville are found in certified residential homes. 50%. I mean, that's unheard of. I can take you over to Glen Kernan down the street, beautiful homes, football players, and right outside of the area is a care home that you would never know about.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. And the VA does a lot of foster homes for veterans in need. So I know I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry.
No, this is fascinating. It's like, so if anyone out there is listening, they need help with their senior parent or friend or whomever, if they're the caregiver and you feel overwhelmed, Al is the one to call. He can help you, walk you through this transition. It's because it's tough to do that alone. Been there, done that. So Al, I've got one final question. It's my signature question. So I'd like to know if you could share a story with us about an opportunity that presented itself to you because of a connection you had, or maybe you were able to open the door for someone else because of a relationship that you had.
Oh, wow. I appreciate you asking that question, and it was an easy answer. There is a marvelous woman in town. You may know her, Sharon Wilburn. She owns a healthcare consulting firm. I'm riding my bike in my community. I get this phone call, put the bike down, pick it up. It's Sharon Wilburn. She says, Al, I've been following you for a while. I think our community really needs you, and I want to connect you with everybody I possibly can. So I got connected to just about all of the C-suite players in the healthcare industry helping seniors in Jacksonville, Mayo Clinic, all these other places. And the one particular story that I want to share is Sharon connected me with Marie Heath. Marie Heath was running the Shell Suite Community Resource Center on the north side, just outside of the Edward Waters University campus. Mm-hmm. I connected with Marie, and as I ask anybody, whether it's business or seniors, I sit down with them and I ask them one question. What do you need? Marie said, and this is going back to the COVID times where everybody's isolated. She says, Al, what I really need is I need computers and I need training, and I got to teach my seniors on the north side how to connect on Zoom and Facebook and all that stuff. I said, no problem. I got the answer already. I got a dear friend, super duper, fellow Marine, Ted Willich, who is the CEO of NLP Logics, one of the largest machine learning and artificial intelligence companies in the nation, located right here in Jacksonville. I called Ted and I said, Ted, I need your help. I need you to help the Shell Suite Center get up and running on training programs for seniors and help underwrite the cost of laptops so that they can do full wide training. He came through with computers. He underwrote the training because they're so close to Edward Waters University. He took one of the students, made him a part-time employee. Now he's full-time, and he has added programs at Edward Waters University teaching artificial intelligence and machine learning. And it's put Edward Waters University on the map as the go-to place for this kind of training. So
that is so awesome. You know, as a matter of fact, I wrote a course on AI, Chat GPT, and for people who are older and they don't know how to use it. And I was just asked this morning by someone if I would come and speak to their group. It's retired people who don't know how to use it. And they said, we know you have a course, Zelda. Will you come and teach our group how to use Chat GPT or any of these chats for personal use, not for business? And I'm like, I would love to do that. I use it all the time in my personal life. It's like I use it for so many things, party planning and travel. There's so many ways you can use it. So yeah, that's a great story. A great story. Oh, was awesome. Well, that is all we have time for today. I thank you for being on the show. And I just want to remind our audience that success is not happening in isolation. It takes those real connections. So reach out, keep connecting, and I'd love to connect with you too. So until next week, this is Success Through Connections.
thank you.